everybody. Welcome to another episode. I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm Alex and Isaac.
And I'm Jake Fisher.
So today we're going to talk about a vehicle that's a little bit different than what we normally talk about. This is our impressions of the Polaris Slingshot. For those of you that might not know, Polaris makes, off-road vehicles like ATVs, quads, things that are called side-by-sides, snowmobiles. And but what is the Slingshot? It's very different than anything else on the road. Polaris says Slingshot is a three-wheeled sensation that reignites your... Stop laughing, Jake. I'm trying to get through this. Slingshot is a three-wheeled sensation that reignites your love of driving. Not a car and certainly not a motorcycle. Slingshot melds the best of both worlds for a whole new way to feel the rush of the road below and the sky above. Doesn't that sound good?
That sounds great.
Interesting that they really made the distinction that's definitely not a motorcycle.
Okay.
I'm going to talk.
Helps, actually.
I'm going to talk to our online folks because we have like car types. Now
Yeah.
we have sensation along with like pickup trucks and SUVs.
As a new car
It's a
type.
whole new
Sensation,
genre of
yes.
car.
So
I'll write that down.
for those of you that are listening and not watching, the Slingshot has two front tires and one rear tire.
Yep.
And it's been in production for about 7 years now.
Mm-hmm.
It has two seats next to each other. It has a steering wheel, so it feels more like a car, I'd say, than a motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
It uses a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine built by Polaris that ranges in power from 178 horsepower at 8,500 RPM to 203 horsepower at 8,250 RPM. You can get it with a 5-speed manual or a 5-speed automated manual. The car that we rented from Polaris.
Don't say car. Sensation.
The Sensation we rented.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Sensation we rented from Polaris had the automated manual, and we'll talk much more about the automated manual
Absolutely
later on.
will.
Yep.
But it didn't have the paddle shifters, though you can get paddle shifters on some of the different trims.
Right.
Polaris says the curb weight for the one we rented was 1,659 pounds, which is really light for a car.
Yep.
And super heavy for a motorcycle.
Right.
Prices
Definitely not a motorcycle.
Right. Prices range from the Slingshot S at $20,799 to the one we rented, which is the Slingshot Signature LE at $35,799, which is a lot of money. So with that out of the way, Jake, this car seems way out of our usual.
Stop saying car.
This sensation,
Yes.
this three-wheeled sensation seems
Yes,
way
that's right.
out of our normal Consumer Reports realm. So what's going on? Are you having a midlife crisis, or
Maybe.
is Consumer Reports having a midlife crisis, or why did we rent this thing?
Curiosity. I mean, you see these things around. I certainly see them around.
Yep.
I think we know what motorcycles are. We know what cars are. And I think, it just made sense for us. It's got a steering wheel. I mean, look, the Tesla Model S that we tested doesn't have a steering
Very
wheel. So, I mean,
important.
this is a real vehicle
Right.
sensation. But I think it just made sense for us to get into this, figure out exactly what it was like to drive. It is the way it looks is outstanding. I mean, the thing is just looks amazing, and you see them around. And I think for a lot of people kind of scratching their heads, they're like, does this make sense? Should I get a Miata? Should I get whatever this thing is? It's priced compatibly with something like a Miata or like a sports car.
Mm-hmm.
So it was time for us to really understand what the heck this was.
Yeah, we gave them 7 years to try and get it right. And,
We give them
you
a
give them a
lot.
7-year head start.
right.
So
That's right.
now,
pretty refined.
one of the things we have to talk about is this automated manual.
Yeah.
Now, you can get it, and for years, the first many years of its production, it came only with a true 5-speed manual transmission. Then they put this automated manual in there that you could get. Tell us what, Alex, an automated manual really is, for those that don't know.
Yeah, so it's basically a manual transmission, but instead of you activating the clutch and working the shift lever yourself, there's an ECU and some actuators that do it for you. So it all is automated, but mechanically it's still a single clutch manual gearbox at its core. And the reason they would do that is because they already had the manual gearbox, right? And so rather than developing a brand new automatic transmission that's big and heavy and all these things, they just kind of retrofitted, in a sense, their existing manual with some actuators, and now you have an automatic.
And how amazing is it?
It is not amazing. It is not a sensation. It is a lack of a sensation. So the problem with these transmissions, and they've been around for a long time. Like in the 60s, there was something called the auto stick from the Volkswagen Beetle had at the time, where it automated the clutch for you. You still had to move the lever, but So
Reaching back.
yeah, the idea has been there, and then sometime in the 90s, Ferrari came out with this F1 gearbox, right?
Yeah.
Which
That
was a
was-
single clutch.
Exactly. Same
yeah.
idea. It had the paddle shifters though,
Right.
which are a key element to the automated manual that was missing with our car,
Right.
or our Sensation.
So what happens?
So-
Tell me, run us
Right.
through what happens when you're using this thing.
So unlike a regular torque converted automatic, which can still apply power during a shift, right? If you're just driving an automatic transmission car, you might feel the shift, but it's not like the car releases as if you've pressed in the clutch and slows down and then clutch re-engages. That's what's happening here. So it still has to, the actuator pushes the clutch in for all intents and purposes. So during the shift, you lose like 2-3 miles an hour in certain instances. I remember just going down the straightaway on the track, kind of full throttle, and the shift takes a while, a couple seconds, probably 2 seconds for it to shift from, say, third to fourth gear. And during that time, you lose a couple miles an hour. So not only do you feel that, but like your head is going back and forth during the shifts, and it takes a while. It's just slow. And it just doesn't make it feel all that engaging or rewarding to use the powertrain. So
It honestly feels almost like you're hitting a wall. You know,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
girlfriend and I took it out for a drive. We went kind of on a route that we would normally take on my motorcycle, and we thought we'll take it in this. And it got to the point where that we would, you know, the full throttle upshifts got so ridiculous, and that pause where you're like, you're
Yeah.
going, and then suddenly you're,
Yeah.
we just kind of look over at each other, and you know, and just kind of laugh about
it's like
it.
a
But-
comic relief moment. Yeah.
But it doesn't help that, you know, as someone who rides a motorcycle, you know, one of the things we really like about the motorcycle is that they're really quick. But this thing, you know, without a lot of horsepower and this kind of dim-witted transmission, it's not that fast. I mean, Jake,
Yeah.
I'd swear the majority of the just regular everyday SUVs we test here have better two-lane passing power than this thing.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we talk about these horsepower numbers, and I mean, these at the RPMs that the horsepower is like way up there, and it feels it, you know? I mean, you look at something, you know, again, like a Miata or something, feels so much faster than this. It just does not
Does feel pretty
feel
slow.
quick.
Yeah.
And for this weight and that kind of horsepower, the thing should be a rocket ship, and it certainly is not.
Right. Now, so that's just the engine part of it. Then there's the handling. Like,
Ooh,
look,
yeah.
think about it, folks. We're used to, you know, either 4 wheels or 2 wheels, and now Polaris is going this other route. And
Yeah.
I got to be honest, I never quite wrapped my head around, you know, feeling super comfortable with the car on a curvy road, especially a slightly unfamiliar road. I just never felt like I could push it that hard because I never knew when the rear was going to come around. Now, Jake,
This is your motorcycle racer, Monty here. Really? Come on.
it just felt unnatural to me. And
It does.
but to that end, you did find that the rear does come around.
Yeah.
And you actually had a hoot on the track. Yes.
It's not bad on the track at all, actually. I mean, you know, again, it's just a mental thing. Like, okay, how many wheels I got? You know, I'm used to driving cars where sometimes the rear inside wheel kind of comes off the ground, you know, and that's okay. It always does that. There's no inside rear wheel, I guess. So around the track, actually, it was kind of, you know, you could push it, and I very quickly got confident with it.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And, you know, it was interesting. You could even drift it, which
Yeah.
was kind of a weird sensation. See what I did there?
I love how you brought it full circle.
That's
But I mean, to go
Skill.
and turn the wheel and have opposite lock and have that one wheel sitting there spinning was don't try this at home. We have obviously our closed track and
Right.
wearing a helmet and all that kind of stuff and safety nearby. But it was stable. You know, it was definitely stable and that. But let's put that aside for a second. Let's talk about on the street how everyone is going to actually use these. And you know, it was so interesting. I was so excited to drive this because like I love little cars and I love like little, you know, go-kart type steering and Miatas, and I had my Toyota R2 for years. And I thought this was going to be just awesome. You know, look at the power to weight ratio and how tiny it is. And you know, there's a saying when it comes to like little sports cars, right? Oh, handles like a go-kart, right? How many times? Well, I'm sure we've all said that.
Right.
This drives like a go-kart.
yeah.
And not in a good way. I mean, it's like, you know, like you go to the go-kart, you know, place, you know, and we do indoor go-kart racing.
Yeah.
It drives like that. It's like, it doesn't, you know, it feels like it's not a finished product. I
Right.
mean, it's so noisy and so stiff.
Right.
And just very like, not even like, Miata has like just telepathic steering.
Right,
This
right.
is
Not
not
that.
like
It's
that.
not
It's
that way.
like there's the mechanisms and there's things and the guy in the go-kart place has to, turn the wrench and tighten things up.
The geometry of the front just doesn't like give you a good feeling through this. It feels like a go-kart.
It
Like
feels like
loads
an
up really
actual
strange. And,
kart.
yeah, it's quick. It responds quick, but
Yeah.
it just
It
doesn't
does.
feel natural.
It feels it's quick. It's pretty direct. But I noticed like just off center, there's a weird sensation where it doesn't do anything at first.
Right.
So you turn in, it doesn't do anything, and then you turn it in more, and then that makes it feel a little bit twitchy at times, which I found a little disconcerting. I did get used to the car, but you're never going to get used to the whatever it is. To the my
Autocycle, I think?
Definitely not a
My
motorcycle.
girlfriend was calling it a tricycle. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
I
not
like
sure
that.
if she meant that in a positive light or not, but
That's accurate.
when you're, it's got pretty good steering feel, but almost too much feel. I mean, you get some serious kicks on bumpy
does,
roads
yeah.
up through the steering, and with just one rear wheel back there, it does not handle mid-corner bumps well at all. So this is not a great vehicle. Can I call it a vehicle?
Yes.
Definitely.
It's definitely
It's not a
vehicle.
great vehicle for a bumpy road.
Yeah, no,
Is what
especially
I
at
found.
higher speeds. I mean, slower speeds, it's okay. It's pretty stiff, but it handles itself okay. All 3 contact patches are on the ground.
Right.
But at higher speeds, we have a little bumpy section out on our track, right, where you can kind of just go straight over these bumps in different speeds. And yeah, above like 50 miles an hour, some of these bumps, it starts to feel a little concerned.
But I mean, beyond that, it's not enjoyable.
No,
like
not
it's
really.
not fun. Like you go out there and like it's fun to sit in.
Right.
It's fun to be seen in. It's fun to look at.
Yeah.
But when you drive this, it's just I mean, again, anyone who has driven a small sports car and knows that feeling. I mean, I remember we had our we had a Lotus here and we had all these. There's so many really fun cars. Your MR2. I mean, that's a fun vehicle to drive all the time. This is like a penalty box. I mean, it's like I'm going and, I used to see these on the street all the time. I'm like, oh, that looks awesome. And now I'm like, I feel sorry for that person driving that
Especially
because
with
it's
how
like
expensive it is.
it's just noisy and windy and not fun. I mean, I have a motorcycle license. I've driven motorcycles are really fun. It doesn't have that fun to it. It's just kind of
It's a really raw kind of experience, right? Like, so I think that's one thing that it does, which you might be able to get from a motorcycle. I'm not a motorcycle rider, but you're way more connected to what's happening mechanically, for better or worse. I'm not really sure. If you like that kind of thing, that's great. But like, you just really hear the engine. The exhaust actually exits in front of you, so you're always hearing that. You hear the gear linkages and things moving around, and the tires are right there, so you hear them working. Cool in a sense, but like it kind of gets old pretty fast.
But it's mechanical. It's not a good sound. Like
Yeah,
you got
it
a
doesn't
motorcycle,
sound great.
Motorcycles sound
It's
phenomenal.
not an
it's
amazing
not that way.
sound.
Right, just
right.
mechanical and
Like
a factory. You're in a
like
factory.
That's right. You feel like you're being punished.
Yeah, like
Yes.
a 4-cylinder, sport bike, whether it's a 600 or 1,000, when you're going full throttle, like on a track or whatever, and you're going through the gears, the sound is amazing.
It's music.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
you just
so
want to hear it
enjoyable.
over and over. And unfortunately, just didn't get that with this one.
No.
It's just loud without sounding that great. And it's neat that it revs over 8,000 RPM
Yeah,
because
that's
we don't
amazing.
see that
No.
anymore hardly, right?
Right.
I mean,
That's right.
with the Honda S2000 being gone, there's
But
just
that sound is so good.
right. That's
Yeah, this
true.
doesn't-
And so they just didn't get that right.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a bummer. So I just want to talk about some sort of like what, well, I'm a little curious who this vehicle is for one thing. But if you look on Polaris's website, it appears as though it's for people who kind of want to be seen.
Yeah.
But they do stress a couple things.
Yeah.
That it is a 3-wheeled motorcycle. It's not an automobile. It does not have airbags, and it does not need to meet automotive safety standards. They also do say 3-wheel vehicles may handle differently than other vehicles, especially in wet conditions. And so they say the federal classification as a 3-wheeled motorcycle means it is not required to meet those auto safety standards. Over 40 states in the U.S. require just a driver's license to drive the Slingshot, not a motorcycle license. And go ahead.
It's a loophole.
Yeah, it
I mean,
is.
they
And-
found
and
a loophole
so-
that they could produce this.
And so one of our editors that drove it, who also has a motorcycle license, he said something. He's kind of one of the more eloquent guys and the editorial
Not any
staff.
of us.
Not me. Yeah, definitely not me. He said, "Kudos to Polaris for daring to create something unique, but it isn't that fun. Over time, I kept fixating on the fact that they gave it 3 wheels, so as a motorcycle, they could skirt all kinds of regulations that are there to protect consumers, notably in a crash." And I think he has a point
Yeah.
to some
Yeah.
extent.
if you want a driving position of a car, just get a car, right? Like,
I mean, because that's what this is.
that's what it
offering.
is, right? You got the pedals, you got the gear shifter if you get the manual, the steering wheel. So I just feel like why sacrifice all the other, especially at this price, the airbags, the safety, the crumple zones. It doesn't have crumple zones, all those things, air conditioning.
Yeah, absolutely. It is not a safe vehicle. There's no question about it. Motorcycle's not a safe vehicle too. But
and that's something that people I think sometimes forget. Motorcycles are inherently not a safe vehicle.
Correct.
But I mean, again, if you're looking for, I mean, look, it almost seems like a beach cruiser. It's like, you just kind of drive around 30 miles an hour around the beach or something, like, and it looks phenomenal.
Right.
I get that. But if you really want to hit a back road or something like that, I mean, you get, again, a Miata.
Yeah.
I mean, just so much fun, same price.
Yeah.
Safety. You know,
could drive it on a longer distance if you really wanted.
Absolutely. So it's
trunk.
just like, if you're really looking at like going to give you that feeling,
Yeah.
you go get a car all day long.
Right.
If you just want to go and park and have someone see you, nothing touches this. I mean, better than forget about a Corvette or even Ferrari. This thing stands out. It really does.
We had this lady come up to us when we'd stopped to get some lunch, and she comes into the store, this general store in Granville we were eating at, and she goes, she said, "Are you the two driving that contraption out there?" and that maybe contraption maybe sums it up more than anything.
I think that's better than sensation.
Sensation.
Yes.
Swap that out.
Contraption. I like
Anyway,
it.
So the last question I want to ask you guys is, if you were going to have a vehicle for the weekend that you wanted to be seen in, is there any vehicle that you'd rather have than this, or to be seen in and the attention you're going to get, is the Slingshot the one for you, Jake?
Slingshot is not the one for me. It's a great question. I mean, obviously we talked about the practical choices, somehow the Miata, somehow that's practical. But you know what the answer is? No, this just came to me. Get a classic car. Get
Like
yourself
an old muscle car or something? Or?
You don't have to go back that far. I mean, give me like a 1992, Toyota MR2 Turbo. Give me a Mazda RX-7 from the early 90s. And I'll tell you what, you could still get those for cheaper than you would pay for this Polaris. And you know what? It's going to stand out more because you're going to have the only one with that. Now, does it have all the safety stuff as today's cars? No. But is it going to be safer than this? I mean, it's got doors and a roof, you know? I mean, things like that.
Now,
so that's where I would go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Now, Alex, you don't strike me as anywhere near as flashy of a person as Jake over here.
Right. That makes sense. I understand
We
that.
call him Mr. Style Man around here at
Oh,
CR.
yeah. Okay.
Rightfully so.
Same question
I'm
to
gonna
you.
leave.
Would you ever consider getting this as a vehicle to have fun in, or especially to be seen in?
I wouldn't. I mean, even just in terms of the looks, which are subjective, I think it looks cool from the front. The back end kind of bothers me, the way it's just this like bathtub looking thing with a wheel sticking out. But anyway, I wouldn't buy it because I don't really love how it drives so much. And now I was going to say a Bronco and just take the doors and roof off that. Because
like a new Bronco,
a new Bronco, and then maybe paint it a crazy color. But then you started talking about classic cars, and for some reason I thought about the Chevy SSR, which came in like, that muscle
the
truck thing.
Yeah.
It was like this like two-door, I don't know why, but that's really weird. It looks weird, and you can take the roof off of that too. So, and you get a better sound with the V8. So maybe I'd try to find one of those.
Yeah. So with that, let's move on to audience questions. Don't forget to send those questions, comments, 30-second video clips to talkingcars@icloud.com. That's the best way to reach us. So this week, we have a question from Joe in Amherst, Ohio. Joe says, I received the following letter regarding my 2018 Mazda CX-9, and I believe we're going to be showing the letter, with the magic of post-production for you folks to see. Mazda hired a company to gather data in order to increase the quality and performance of their cars. And Joe asks, have you heard of this? Do you recommend this? And have you heard anything negative about this type of program? So I reached out to Mazda, to the public affairs office there, and I was told that this process is part of a mandatory EPA and CARB emissions testing program labeled the In-Use Verification Program. Since 2004, all automotive manufacturers have been required to perform exhaust and evaporative emission testing on in-use customer vehicles for every model within 5 years of sale date. So, Jake, that sounds like a good thing.
This is legit. I mean, it's a good. I mean, again, you get some mail. You always look at it like, hey, is this some kind of scam or something?
Right.
This is not a scam. This is actually kind of an exhaustive process to make sure your exhaust is clean. And it's actually, did you see what I did there?
I get it. Oh my God.
Brilliant.
I got a million of them. Actually, that's all I got.
Style and funny.
But yeah, so this is actually completely legit. go for it. You're actually helping making sure that cars continue to be clean, even in service. There are other types of programs like this where the car companies will reach out to their consumers and making sure that they're having a good experience with them.
Right.
If you choose to, absolutely, by all means, participate in them. Keep an eye out. I mean, obviously there are some scams, but I mean, this type of thing is actually a really good thing.
Yeah. So don't be afraid if it makes sense. Go ahead and do it. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to learn more about the Slingshot and other vehicles we talked about, you can click on the links in the show notes. Alex, stop laughing over there when I said that. Don't forget to send those questions, comments, 30-second video clips at TalkingCars@iCloud.com. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all next week.